With that being said, make peace with your past. Put the habits in place. You gotta keep moving. Give without expectation. Be patient. You have to recognize what your emotions are. Just have an accountability partner where you make each other go. It took some time. That's a mental toughness thing. Stuff that may be a little harder to do.
Hey, Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to it.
Great, fantastic, and glad to for you to take some time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about finding your why in regards to finding a career that you love. But before we dive into that, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience and how you have developed the expertise to help people find their why?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I've been in sales for 25 years, real estate and mortgage sales. Now I do some coaching in addition to that with salespeople and life skills as well, or life and business coaching. Um, if you don't have your life intact, it's tough to get involved in your sales and push that to a higher level. So we always kind of cross both life and sales at the same time. I've been doing it, like I said, 25 years, and I know we're going to jump into the why stuff. And my why before sales was, I wanted to get into law enforcement. I worked in a juvenile lockup for 5 years out of college. While I was doing that, I was getting my master's degree in counseling psych, working with the inmates, and it just really was kind of a thankless position because a lot of these inmates that you would hope that would be rehabilitated as they went back out into society would be uh, you know, better off, and they just would reoffend, or in a lot of cases end up dead or killing people. So it was kind of sad. It wasn't for me, and then I was going to continue with law enforcement. But while I was waiting out in California, I was telemarketing for a mortgage company, and I found that I was using my counseling skills talking to people on the phone, and just that's kind of I just became an incredible passion, and it developed into an incredible career in sales.
Great. Going back to what you discussed about the inmates, about like how you try to help them, and then when they get released, they end up reoffending. Uh, One of the common things that I've noticed is that when you provide guidance to people, if they're not fully bought in, they don't actually implement what you teach them, and then they end up going back to old habits. So why is that? Like, why does it look like they're down and out? You want to help them, but then they're not receptive to your help, or they say, "Yeah, yeah, I'll get to it," and then they don't end up doing it. So, what is stopping them from actually making that positive change?
So these were teens, right? So a lot of them were just coming from incredibly horrific family situations or street situations. A lot of them were in gangs. A lot of them were, they there was sex offenders. There was violent offenders. There's all kinds of you call them inmates, or we call them, it was juvenile detention. But when they get released, as much as they think that they leave there and saying, you know what, I'm never getting back into crime again, and then you put them back in the same environment. Well, it's just a matter of time. So I think that's kind of half the problem. And some of them didn't buy in, and they knew they were going to be a gangbanger for life, and they would give lip service, and that was it. So it's what the first thing is really what you want to do. What do you want to accomplish? Where do you want to end up? And that was on them. But for the state to put the kids back into the original environment where they came out of is a recipe for disaster. You're just setting someone up to fail, no matter how badly they want to get out of it. And that was kind of the problem with the system.
It goes back to you are who you associate with, right? So even if you try to better yourself, for example, like the gym, if you want to get into shape, you go to the gym, right? But then if you go back to hang out with your friends, but they don't go to the gym, they eat a lot of bad food. It's very hard for you to adapt to a new lifestyle because you're so used to the old environment that you're a part of.
Yeah, I call it your top five. Find your top five for anything that you want to accomplish, and make sure those top five they're gonna elevate you to levels you want to go. And occasionally you'll have some people that are really close to you that may not be suitable to bring you to that level. So it could be a fitness goal, it could be a health goal, it could be a financial goal. Make sure you surround yourself with those people that will bring you there. And again, like, you could have the closest people in your life just may not be equipped to talk you up to getting where you want to go. And well-intentioned people, I tell a story, when I was doing some of my endurance races, my Ironmans and some marathons and things. My mom would, Billy, you're gonna get hurt. You're still gonna do this kind of stuff. That's a long ways to go. So as much as I kid around with that, and I love my mom, I wouldn't say that was toxic, but I would say that wasn't my top five in surrounding myself with bringing me there. So whether you get coached, whether you have people around you, help you get there, colleagues, friends, family, someone that has the same mindset, and where they want to be, is that really where you want to associate yourself.
Going back to like finding your why, one of the challenges is to take risks in order to find your why, and then once you find your why, to actually again take more risks to actually help make it happen. But a lot of people, especially in today's society, they're very risk averse. They want to avoid failure. How do you help people, or what advice can you give people in terms of like overcoming that fear of failure and showcasing to them that you need to push past adversity to get to where you want in your career?
Yeah. So the first thing, before you start pushing through the adversity, I think the first thing is to recognize that your why is going to change. My why 25 years ago was I was competitive. I I I yearned to be successful. I wanted some nice things, and that was I was money motivated, driven at that time, and now 25 years later, my why is totally different. My why is about my kids. My why is about leaving a legacy. My why is about modeling how we can give back and make a difference and impact society, and going from success to significance. So when and then getting to the adversity piece, if your why and your purpose is strong enough, it's going to help you get through those challenges that are going to come. You got to remember, when you set your goals, you're not gonna hit that goal in a straight line. You're going to zig, you're going to zag, you're going to fall. So when you fall down, it's about getting up as fast as you can to get back on track. And that's where, we talk about the thriving mentality in the book, Thriving in the Storm, to develop that thriving mentality. And that's where you're in a high level of creation. You're usually with associated yourself with the can do attitude. I'm going to be positive about no matter how much of a setback I have, because I'm going to get back on track here. So the thriving mentality towards overcoming the adversity. Now, on the flip side of that, if you don't have a thriving mentality, you could have a victim mentality where you just, what, I got knocked down. This is a good reason for me to stay here and not get back up. Maybe these goals weren't for me. The self-doubt, the fear, you talk about that may be overpowering enough where you quit on your goal. So that's where you got to keep moving. You got to keep taking a step forward towards your goals. And again, surrounding yourself with people, surrounding yourself, putting that plan in place, knowing that plan, knowing the action steps that you have to take. But you gotta keep moving. You can't be sedentary when you have set major goals, or you will fall to that victim mentality, or even the survival mentality, where what, the storm hit, I'm just going to let it pass and wait, and I'll wait for it to pass over and get through this. So a survival, you hear that phrase, how you doing? Well, I'm just surviving. Why not thrive? Why not be on a course where you want to go out there and succeed like crazy? And that's kind of the differences in those mentalities. So if you have the victim mentality, usually you have feelings of sadness, anger, despair, depression. And then you want to get to that thriving mentality, where it's enthusiasm, joy, passion, love for life. You're zest. You want to get out there, and you want to just go make a difference for yourself and others.
Speaking of like the feelings of like the victim mentality, a lot of our how we react to things is usually based off like how we grew up. And you wrote in your book that in order for people to really move forward, going from a victim to more of a proactive mentality, they have to handle unresolved issues in their childhood. Can you explain more of that concept and what can people do to identify those issues from childhood? Because they might not know what really triggered them into being the way they are.
Yeah, so I mean, well, it's our formative years, right? So it shapes us, our childhood. So here's what I've done with that in those formative years is I grew up in an incredibly toxic environment where there was a lot of physical and emotional abuse, where there was a lot of shaming. You're not good enough, and you never will be good enough type of scenarios. But I would try to do things even as a kid, in spite of, like, I'll show you. And that was the competitive nature. Like, I'm gonna succeed because I'm gonna show you that I am worthy, that I am capable of more than you think. There's still a lot of self-doubt, but I grew up thinking that was normal and that was okay. But it took years and years and years, and even my own psych background, to seek out other professionals in the industry to realize that this was not normal. And there was some pretty rough things that happened mental health wise, that I started to unpack, that it was a lot of angst, anxiety, anger that I grew up with, not recognizing that shaped me, um, growing up. So then what you need to do is recognize and become aware of where you may have been held down, held back, where you may have been for you witnessed examples of just things that shaped you, that you wish you could take back, right? With that being said, make peace with your past. And making peace with your past is forgive yourself. Especially in the formative years, you didn't do anything wrong. um, Forgive yourself for what happened to you. Forgive those who you feel have wronged you, and then you can start to heal and get peace with yourself and those that may have wronged you. Now, here's the reason that's so important: is when you make peace with your past, is you won't carry that ill will around with you. If you carry ill will and you stuff that down and suppress it, it's gonna hinder you. You'll probably be sick. You'll probably have a lot of anxiety. You probably have, maybe revengeful thoughts, or whatever. But so you don't want to let that bring you down. So you have to keep forgiving, and it usually will require therapy, and it will require professionals to help you along. In addition to going through those things, I also believe that everybody should be coached in different areas where they want to um, achieve. No matter what that is. If it's a fitness goal, make sure you get that fitness coach. If it's a marathon or a triathlon or whatever, make sure you get that. If you are into if you're into like martial arts, make sure you get yourself associated with the right people that can help you there physically, but not only physically, but in all walks of life. Seek out coaching, seek out help, seek out therapy.
When you talk about like seeking out people, that means you have to show proactiveness in wanting to change who you are to again find your why and have and find something that's fulfilling for your career. Most people, as you know, are more reactive to things, and you urge people to find their purpose and not wait for a life changing moment. Unfortunately, a lot of people wait for that life changing moment to actually do something. So, for example, someone gets laid off from their job and then they go full time on their business, or uh, something drastic happened with their family, so they end up like cutting back on hours working to like maybe do other types of work that they feel more passionate about. But all these occur when there's a life changing moment. But again, that's still very reactive and not doing proactive things to get to where you want to go and make you want to go there faster. So how do you like start having that proactive mentality so you can speed up your work to get that purpose and find that purpose to get the work that will fulfill you?
Yeah, I think you got to go above and beyond in everything you do, and provide an incredible amount of value in whatever area that you're working in. If you can provide so much value that you can't you can't be the first cut on the chopping block. Like, you're just going to be highly sought after. So, Napoleon Hill talked about it in Think and Grow Rich, do more than you're paid for. And never think like, I don't get paid. I don't get paid to do that. Never talk like that. That's kind of scarcity mentality. So make sure that you're always providing value in whatever role you're in. And if you're in a service industry, provide value to your clients, provide value to your colleagues, provide value to your employees, or your boss and those that are under you. Just provide incredible amounts of value, and look at your position and look at where you're at and see where you can actually start to add more value. And it just, I mean, there's some networking groups that I belong to over the years, and a lot of people would say, I didn't get much from that networking group because they didn't give back to me. But I flip that around. I say, well, where was the giver's gain? What did you do to give first? Like, if you start to give first in whatever position or whatever you're doing, it will come back to you. But you have to look that way, and not what did I get out of it. It's what did I give too. Then it comes back.
Yeah, you made a good point, especially in this instant gratification society that's very prevalent because of all the social media that's out there. Everybody wants things now, and they want to get first before they give. But you're saying that you have to give first to get something back, right? So like, how can people like start becoming more uh, like show more gratitude and give without expecting anything in return? Because right now, from what I can see, people who are actually proactive in giving, they are expecting something back in return, and then they get irritated when they don't get something back.
It's got to be unconditional. It's got to be. You got to give unconditionally. If you're watching the scoreboard and be like, hey, you know what? I gave three things to zero. that again, that's scarcity mentality, so that will burn you. So you have to give without expectation. You have to give because you want to make a difference. You want to give because it feels good. You want to have gratitude because it lifts you up and puts you in that higher state of thriving mentality like we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like finding your why and actually making it happen, uh, the most successful people that I know and have read, especially the big entrepreneurs, that they have a set amount of routines and habits that makes them efficient. For someone who feels lost and unmotivated, they might not have those habits. And as you know, it does take some time to develop the habit because for example, like going to the gym, you might go to the gym for the first couple of weeks of New Year's, but then a lot of people can't stick with it, and then they end up just dropping off. So it is very hard to create good habits to be successful. So, what is your advice in regards to finding a habit and then actually sticking with it, building momentum to get to where you want to go?
Yeah, so you said it. They say they can't stick with it after the new year. They're not going to stick with it after the new year, right? So those are the excuses. So what you need to do is put the habits in place and eliminate other habits. So if this is a New Year's thing where you are going to go to the gym, then have an accountability partner possibly. If you don't trust that you're going to make it there. Or if you're going to start walking, you start running, you're going to start going to the gym, whatever it is, just have an accountability partner where you make each other go, and you build that pack. But make sure your accountability partner is super strong and is not going to cave. Because then if you start saying, well, I don't feel like it and I don't feel like it. And guess what? Remember we talked about the top five earlier? Well, that's not somebody you want in your top five. You need somebody that's going to absolutely hold you accountable. And if it's not an accountability partner that's going to go with you, then immediately hire a trainer, because you're going to pay a trainer, and that trainer is going to hold you accountable, or you're going to be throwing away your money. And so that's certainly what you can do there. So, and as far as your habits go, if it's a morning thing, pack your clothes up the night before, lay them out if you have to have your breakfast or whatever, and just get it all ready. Get everything ready the night before, so you're not scrambling the morning of, which will make it easier if you're scrambling to give up. So just have everything in place where you set yourself up for success. Now, maybe what do you have to eliminate? Well, maybe you stay up late at night and now you want to get up earlier to start going to the gym. Well, what are you doing? You watching Netflix? Are you surfing the internet? So now that habit, you got to start to eliminate some of these habits. Now you can't eliminate some of these habits altogether, but maybe cut back on on your internet surfing or binge watching, a half hour in the first week. Wake up a half hour earlier. Start cutting that back. Eventually, where you can start eliminating some of these habits and adding the new good habits in, of, like, for example, of waking up earlier. Have that morning routine. But when we say have the morning routine may be some gratitude. The morning routine may be some prayer and meditation. It may be just a quick prep for work, and your workout, right? But a lot of times we lose sight of the fact that we also have that evening routine, that bookending to the day, where how are you winding down? Are you winding down frazzled and scrambled, and you're still working like crazy and cramming that PowerPoint presentation that you need to get done, and just not having everything in line? Try to, that stuff like that will occasionally happen, but try to keep your routine with the book end at night, where you are giving gratitude. Maybe you're writing in your journal. Maybe you're eliminating the TV and internet surfing altogether. Because all that stimulation that you're putting in your mind before you go to bed usually will result into a pretty rough sleep patterns. So you want to be very careful. So those are the two ways to create some of those habits. Eliminate the bad habits, but do it slowly. I wouldn't say go cold turkey, and add in the good habits, and that they can start replacing each other, and then you'll have a nice routine in front of you. It takes some time.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you touched on is like you don't have to go cold turkey. You have to do slowly. For a thing that a lot of people want to do is they want to create the new habit right away. So, for example, let's going back to the gym example. They might say, okay, I want to get fit, so I'm gonna start going to the gym in the new year, and then they try to go like 5 times a week, and then they burn out. It might actually be better to just go slowly at like once a week. It might not be much, but at least you're building momentum, and then you get up it to two or three. And then on the quitting side, obviously one of the habits right now, or that's been there for a few years, is for a few decades, is like quitting smoking. Uh, some people try to quit cold turkey, and it's a lot harder. It might be better to choose some of that gum to help ease the addiction a bit, and then you slowly remove that as well. So it goes back to the instant gratification, right? So my question to you in regards to like starting a habit or getting rid of a bad habit, people tend to want to change their lifestyle really quickly, but sometimes that doesn't work out. So what's your advice in terms of being patient with the process?
I was just gonna say be patient. So be patient, but here's the other thing you do: you can build in your accountability by declaring what your intentions are. So if we're using your example of the gym, right? Declare that, hey, I'm starting my routine, and I'm going to post my workout that I did 3 times a week. And if I don't post, I need, on social media, I need everybody to hold me accountable. And so, like, you gotta have fun with it. Tell your colleagues, tell everybody what you intend to do. Because if you keep it to yourself, it's way easier not to have to explain why you didn't keep going on. Now, you could even, on the flip side of that, if you stumble and you fall and you miss a few things, and you miss your workouts or your gym visits, then you can even say, you know what, hey everybody, I drifted a little bit. Can you help me get back on track? Like, and again, it doesn't have to be social media, but you could have people that you're asking to keep you accountable. And that could be coaches, it could be colleagues, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be anybody.
Yeah, one of the things is like if you're looking to change your life, it's to build in public and announcing like what you're going to do, because somebody out there who's listening to this podcast, or watching you on video, or watching or reading a post that you made on Twitter or LinkedIn, they might actually uh, bring it up, say, "Hey, I thought you were going to do this and this, right?" And now it looks bad because now you're in the public sphere, and now you want to do it because you don't want to have that judgment.
Right. That's exactly right.
Great. And you said that you faced a lot of adversity in your life, from a challenging childhood to caring for a serious ill family member, and as you said, completing marathons. So, from your experience, what were some common traits on how you overcame all of those challenges in your life, overcoming that adversity?
Yeah, so I mean, very human here, humanizing this. So of course, when some of these major challenges show up, it's easy to quit on what you really need to do. When I took care of a loved one, I'll tell you, I mean, it was touch and go for a little while, and um, I got rid of, I was in the hospital for for a few weeks, pretty much not staying at my house because I was in a different state. But what I started to do is I realized that I was kind of caving into the victim circumstance. So my family member was very sick, and um, I was I was like I would go down to the local restaurant from the hospital and go eat and have a couple of drinks every day. And then I wasn't going to the gym and I wasn't doing the things that I was doing and I wasn't working. I was having my staff just take over all my stuff. And it got to the point where like, what am I doing? Like, how am I able to pick anybody up that I'm trying to take care of that's down and that's basically on their deathbed? Like, if that's my mentality and that's how I'm going through this, that's not that's not a good, well, first of all, it's not just not a good feeling to present when you walk in the room when you're not strong, when you're weak, right? And I'm not saying everybody should be incredibly strong when life hits us upside the head that way, but at least you could try to show up as your best self. So then the switch went off after a few days. It's like, dude, I gotta get in the gym. I just start getting to work. So I was like working in the hotel lobby till like 2 o'clock in the morning, sending emails out and sending things out and doing things and kind of delegating to the staff and getting the morning workout in before things happen. So like it took some time for the switch to go off and say I'm not showing up in the hospital room as my best self. So that's what I have to do. So you got to figure out how can you be your best self when you're down and out and when things when things hit the fan.
Yeah, and going to that, whether like things are when you have a challenge in front of you, or when you're playing that victim mentality, or you want to quit, it all comes down to like your emotions affecting your decision making. So how do you keep your emotions in check to help you overcome that adversity and push past those challenges to get and achieve the goals that you're looking to achieve?
Well, emotions are definitely going to come into play. It's just you want to keep them in check, right? Like you said. So you have to recognize what your emotions are and then feel them and then process them and then either transition those emotions. Now we talked about those low level emotions of sadness, unhappiness, despair, depression, loneliness. Like, so how can you transition those feelings and what's it going to take? And I think the easiest and fastest way to make that transition is to recognize what you have going good for you. What are you grateful for right now? And most of those things in our lives are free. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for my kids' health. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful for the incredible career I have. I'm grateful for, my friends and family. Like, so I'm grateful for all of these things, and watch what happens when you start talking like that about being truthfully thankful. Your emotions start to change, and now when you have this gratitude, now you start to feel that love, you start to feel that joy, you start to feel that happiness, you start to feel that peace, and that changes the game. It changes your physiology.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to your career in the marathon, you talked about and you learned the concept of junk miles. Can you explain what that means in terms of junk miles?
Sure, sure. So junk miles was for the Ironman triathlon, right? So it's a swim. The term came from swimming. So I when you swim and you're going through the motions, you think that because you're in the water, you're getting better, and that is to a lesser degree. But you actually have to do drills and you have to work on some things to get better. So I was just swimming and preparing for my first Ironman, and I realized that I really wasn't getting better in the water, and I still had the regular anxiety. I still had the stuff that I still had to battle. And I'm like, why am I not getting better? I'm swimming 3 days a week. I'm in the pool for an hour a day. Like, why am I not getting better? And I realized that I read somewhere in a triathlon preparation book about the junk miles, and I was like, oh wow, this is hitting home. I'm not doing the drills. I'm not doing the things to get better because I'm not intensifying my workout. I'm not doing some things that will help me with my form, my efficiency. So I was coasting, right? So junk miles I equate to coasting. Now, when you work, You go in the office and your 9 to 5 job, and you're just coasting along and not trying to improve, not trying to get better, not trying to do all the hard things that you can, and do the easiest things throughout your day. That's how I equate that junk miles. It's coasting and getting through and getting by. And when we talk about the thriving mentality, that's not thriving. That's surviving. That's the victim to survival mode. Like, let's thrive. So thriving is, you're gonna ratchet that up. You're gonna do those hard things. You're gonna prospect more. You're gonna do that. You're gonna make those tough phone calls. You're gonna go after the business that you need to go after, to get to that higher level. And that's where you're gonna, beat those chunk miles.
You made a good point. There's a difference between doing busy work to feel productive and actual work that actually makes an impact. So, for example, if you're a business owner, you might think writing a blog on your website is productive. Hey, I'm writing blogs, I'm building up the website, but the real impact work is actually like cold calling and creating partnerships. But people tend to avoid that and do other busy work. So, my question to you is, how do you separate work that actually matters and work that you're just keeping yourself busy because it makes you feel productive?
Yeah, that's kind of like sales 101. Like, what is your highest payoff activity, right? In sales, it's prospecting. And so if you're not prospecting, that's your green light activity. Pretty much everything else is going to be red and yellow light activities. Like, hey, I saw you at the copy machine trying to fix it for the last hour. Like, there's some jammed paper. What's going on? Well, it needed to get fixed. Well, I thought those were your prospecting times. You don't get paid trying to fix a copy machine. You get paid prospecting. So, like, it's finding out, and somebody has to fix a copy machine. Okay, fine, but we'll figure that out. But the people that are trying to bring in the business, in the business world, like, that's not the best use of their time. The best use of their time is their highest payoff activity. So when you break it down, what is your highest payoff activity, and color code that or check that and say, I need to do this X amount of hours a day to be productive. And anything else is just low level productivity things that aren't gonna that's busy work that's not gonna um, get a return on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the high impact work about like prospecting and generating leads, uh, if you're working in a work environment, a corporate work environment, you're going to get a lot of distractions. People always want your time, whether it's like meetings or reviewing things, any basically a lot of administrative stuff. And if you say yes to a lot of this, is going to overwhelm you, and you're going to not focus on stuff that you need to get done. So, what is your advice in terms of making a bulletproof schedule where you have this a block of time that you only focus on that and you ignore everything else? Like, how do you keep yourself rigid so you are also helping people do their work, but you're also focusing on what you need to get done to grow your business or grow yourself professionally?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're in sales or you're in leadership or whatever it is, let people know your schedule. Say, listen, hey, I'm going to prospect. I'm going to be working on these high payoff activities for the next 2 hours. Can you give me some grace on anything we need to discuss? Can you figure it out? And you're empowering others, you're empowering colleagues, and it could be just a lateral move. And then when it's their turn to do their high payoff activities, if they're willing to share with you, then help them out a little bit too. I'm not saying just stand your ground, not do anything to be a team player. You got to be a team player, but collaborate. I would collaborate together. I mean, I'll tell my team, hey, listen, I'm on a Zoom call from 4 to 5. I'll be available shortly thereafter. So if there's anything that you guys can take care of, please take care of. And you know what that does? That gives them so much more freedom to figure things out and accelerate their own growth and trajectory while they're not always having to rely and ask questions. It's because when someone's not around, you have to use your resources. And there's plenty of resources in this day and age in any business to come up with an answer if you can't get it from the hierarchy of management levels.
Going back to the finding your why, right, and finding your passion. Um, One of the issues is like some people might enjoy doing something for a certain period of time, but if they turn it to a full time job, they actually start despising it. So, for example, let's say um, I like playing video games, right? So I don't mind playing it like every like few hours a day. Uh, as a good way to relieve stress, but I wouldn't want it as a job as a video game tester because then I'll be playing the same levels over and over again, playing like nonstop the same game. So that might be a bit frustrating. Or, for example, let's say you like creating content for yourself, but then you find it not as enjoyable when you have to create content for other people. So the content creation for yourself is good, but creating content for other people, it's not as fulfilling as you initially thought. So my question to you is, what is something that's you should consider as a hobby so you still find enjoyment, and what would you consider turning the hobby into something that you can focus on full time?
I mean, well, okay, so if it's a hobby and it's a passion and it's your unique value proposition, then maybe you could consider that. I would say, I call that your core genius, like what your intangibles are, what you're good at innately, and if that's something that you wanna do, then go ahead and start to work on monetizing that if you can. Maybe it's a side hustle. The other thing, you playing your video games, your business first. Video games is kind of your vice, your decompression, your stress relief, right? So if you have those things, and you got to be careful that you don't overdo it. Do you overdo the video games where it's impacting your business, where it's impacting your family life, where it's impacting your finances, where it's impacting your stuff? So you gotta make sure there's a fine line. We all should give ourselves rewards and grace when it comes to our vices. But I'll give you an example. I used to be I still kind of am, by addiction, but I'm a sports radio junkie. I'm in the Boston area, so I love all our Boston teams. So they've had a lot of success in the last several years, and I've always loved to listen to sports radio. I would find myself in the car listening to sports radio for hours a day, and I'm like, why am I going to listen to all this sports radio when I could just, at the end of the day, go to ESPN.com or go to the local sports channel and just get my information in 5 minutes of reading over a website or some news, and I would just listen for 5 or 6 hours a day. Like, so what I've learned to do over the years is I'm a podcast junkie and listen to a few of your podcasts, and on some of the business stuff was great. And then, I'll always have an audiobook going, or I'll always have a podcast going. So I always have something personal development, um, that I can use. And if I want to break, I was like, you know what? I just listened to 3 books in the last, week here in the car. I'm gonna take an hour. I'm gonna listen to sports radio. That's just my break. That's my brain getting a break. So that's okay. So just I'd be careful on what you choose to have your vice. If your vice is a passion and a unique proposition, a unique value proposition, and you want to side hustle that, then you would probably want to start to look at how you could monetize that. So, and it's a passion. I mean, go for it.
I got a question for
I
you.
just had to
Oh, go
break
ahead.
that down for you.
Wait, sorry.
I was just trying to break down the differences.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I actually want to ask you that you made a good point about the sports radio. Um, a lot of men who are passionate about sports. So what they would do is they would watch the, like, say a football. So let's say you watch the Patriots versus the Jets on Sunday, and then you watch the highlights that night, even though you already saw the game. And then on Monday you'll go on like NFL Network or ESPN First Take and watch people talk about the game you just watched. So you're spending way more time after the results already been done. Like, why is that? Why do people like, I do too, but like, what's your perception of like why people want to like overconsume something that already happened?
Because it's drama a lot of times, and so like there's just different takes, and however a commentator may spin it, and the coach said this, and this guy's going to get benched, and so it's just added to what you've already witnessed, what you probably already know, and it's the curiosity factor now. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Also, it's easy to take in the gossip and drama of these things. It's news, right? News is usually bad and it sells, and so it's interesting. So people want to see it and listen to it, and it takes them away from stuff that may be a little harder to do, than listening to some guys talk about the benching of a star player.
Yeah, like we already touched upon this. People want to do stuff that's easy. They don't want to focus on the hard stuff, right? So let's say there's work they have to get done, but hey, I'd rather just go on Netflix and like change the channel and watch something, right? There's so many pleasurable distractions that make you not want to focus on things that actually matter because people don't want to be uncomfortable, right? They rather focus on stuff that's enjoyable. But the problem is that if you don't face the uncomfortability now, it's going to get worse later on. So how do you uh, well, I shouldn't say eliminate devices, but how do you minimize devices that you can still enjoy it, but not deter your success for the long term?
Well, make sure your schedule's tight. So like if you just are aimless in your scheduling and your planning, then you're gonna leave room for things to creep in that will allow you to drift. And if you consider that drifting and it's important for you not to drift, then get your schedule tight and work on the things that are harder. Work on the things that are gonna be your highest payoff activities. And that is part of your why, right? We kept talking about why. So if your why is strong enough, then don't let those things distract you. Again, you watch 3 hours of football, you know about the game. Why tune into the highlights for another hour or two that night, or why listen to a few hours of the sports radio? It says all the same stuff. Be productive. If your why is strong enough and it's burning, white hot burning desire for you, then you're gonna figure that out and not cave to that. And that goes back to the accountability piece. That goes back to like putting your plan in place. That goes back to making your schedule tight, building your fortress, with your bookended routines, your morning routine, your night routine. Like just have these things in place.
And speaking of which, this is a good segue for the next point of discussion. So let's say you've you found your why, you found your purpose, you're ready to get things going, you plan to make that career change. Uh, how do you set goals and create what you call a 5-step implementation plan to help you achieve those goals that you have now set yeah, you have now put in place?
So I mean, SMART goals, right? We all know SMART goals. I mean, it's goal setting 101, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time oriented, right? So we all do that, right? But what I do is I look at when I set a goal for the year, for example, I'll look at my will of life, and my will of life will be many facets. Could comprise of spirituality, um, friendships, relationships, family, um, finances, career, fitness, wellness, whatever, right? So, what is important in that will of life? And you still have to hit on them all, but focus on your big three. Find the three things that you want to do in the next year and focus on those. Because if you focus on, say, you have 8 to 10 areas of your life that you just want to focus on, and you start trying to spend the same amount of time on all those things, you're going to be all over the place. Remember, we talked about busy being busy. You're going to be busy trying to figure out how to get all the stuff done, and you're not going to do it. You'll feel miserably, and then you may go into that victim mentality because you set yourself up to not achieve it. So if you get your big three, your three major goals, your three major purposes, your three major whys, and you start to put that together with the plan, and then creating the actions. You want to put the time on it, the timestamp on it. You want to start to put what that looks like, what that feels like, put those emotions in there, and you can create that process where Darren Hardy has a great um, yearly journal. It's called Living Your Best Year Ever, and that one I was using for years, 10 plus years, and that is the one where you get the will of life. But what's in this is to take the process a step further is you look back on the previous year on where you learned and where you were able to get your takeaways and where you maybe misstepped and have to clean up some stuff. So that's also a great exercise in helping you identify, your big three whys moving forward.
Great. Yeah, and I'm a fan of Darren Hardy too. Like one of my first self improvement books that I bought was The Compound Effect. I'm sure you read it as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Great. And speaking of books, you have a book yourself, Thriving in the Storm. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit about how this book came to fruition and what made you want to write it?
Yeah. So it's all about overcoming adversity. We talked about the three levels of mentality, and that was victim, survival, and thriving. The idea is to thrive as much as you possibly can. It's not humanly possible to always be thriving, but at least if you keep that awareness that you want to be thriving, to get that thriving mindset at all times is really how it's going to help you, and you'll succeed much more quickly than you would if you had a victim or survival mentality. So that's one thing. And the other part of that is we are capable of way more than we think we are. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was doing the Boston Marathon, and it was like my fifth Boston Marathon. And I trained enough, but I didn't train the way I needed to train with my nutrition. So I took my nutrition for granted, and I didn't have a lot of the nutrients and things that I needed on race day, and I kind of blew it off. And in New England, it's an April day in New England, and it can be, I think that day was 70 degrees, 40 degrees, and sunny, rainy, and windy cross, and maybe even some snow and ice. I don't know, but it was that day I cramped up like crazy, and because I didn't have the nutrition that I needed, I was pretty upset with myself, and I kind of stumbled through mile 15 to 26, and it was just miserable. And what I said is, how could anybody do an Ironman triathlon, which is a 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and then finish it with a marathon on top? The cherry on top's the marathon, right? So I was like, that's a mental toughness thing. So I wanted to try to challenge myself to that thinking that it kind of seemed impossible. So when I set out to do that, I set out to do that within 6 months. But I tried to hire a lot of coaches, and many of the coaches said, "There's no way you could do that without any training." I didn't swim for 30 years. I didn't have a bike, and I just bombed. I finished the marathon, but I didn't do well in it. So I was like, this is a can do thing. I'm gonna figure this out, and I found a coach that would help me. And so that's kind of how went through thriving. I didn't think I was capable of it until I decided to do it. So it was those things, your thriving mentality, and we are all capable of way more than we think we are once we put our mind to it. And you surround yourself with the right people, you put the action plan in place, and then you can do it.
Awesome. Really appreciate the conversation, Bill. And I want to ask this one last question that I ask all my guests at the end of our conversation. So, as you know, my podcast is about helping professionals overcome career challenges to get to where they want to go. So, for you, what was one big career challenge that you had to make to get to where you are today?
The career challenge is just, it's hustle. I mean, you have to hustle every single day. You don't take a day off. And if you do take a day off, be very careful. And when I say that, when I say check out, when I mean take a day off, if you need a scheduled day off, you're on vacation, whatever, take a day off. What I'm saying is, the adversity hits and strikes, and you quit that day. You leave. You know what? You say, this deal's blowing up. This is going south. I can't handle this. I'm done. I'm leaving for the day. I'll check back tomorrow. Well, maybe there was a way to save it, or maybe you could have collaborated with a bunch of people, or mastermind, or brainstormed, or you could have brought people in. And then now your colleagues and your clients and your boss or whoever's looking for you, and you're just like, you know what, I'm shutting my phone off. I don't want to deal with this. And then you try to come back the next day and exasperated because that problem could have been solved, but you just created all kinds of angst in so many other areas that you may lose that day, because now you're trying to take care of the stuff that you didn't take care of. So when stuff happens to you, get through it as fast as you can, but stay in the game. That's the thriving mentality. So that's the hustle. Like, don't give up, keep working hard, get as many people as you can involved, surround yourself with the people that can help you, to get through it. And don't be afraid to make the tough phone call. Sometimes we have to make a tough phone call, and that could be to anybody. It could be to a colleague, could be to a client, could be to a higher up. Just, hey, this thing's not going well, but this is what we need to do. So just stay in the game with that.
Great. I appreciate that advice. And how can people reach out to you to learn more about what you do and how you can help them? And of course, how can they find your book, Thriving in the Storm?
Yeah, thank you. The Thriving in the Storms on Amazon, and where all books are sold. We have a website, thrivinginthestorm.com. We talked a little bit about journaling, and we have a free journal on there that they can download. And we also have a workbook full of exercises, some of the things we talked about today that may help some folks in their career and life.
Awesome. Again, I appreciate the time, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. For more content on careers, job search, and self-improvement, make sure to hit that subscribe button.